Hello everybody. Now, in the last video we talked about throwing a cylinder, but in this one what we're going to talk about is using a slab roller to create a soft slab sculpture. So, first things first, what we need to talk about is how to properly use a slab roller, and even though it's a very effective tool used in the ceramic lab, it can also be very dangerous if used incorrectly. So, first things first is we need to understand that the slab roller is a tool and not really a toy. So anything like this roller or these dials, they're not really meant to be messed with once they're set up, and they should be used with caution and not abused ever in the ceramics lab. The next thing you're going to need, of course, is your clay, but also you're going to need some canvas, or you could use a blanket, and also kind of a mallet tool or a rolling pin. So this is a solid wood rolling pin, and these tools are going to help us kind of get this clay through the slab roller and make some really nice slabs that we're able to work with a little bit later. Now, we have this block of clay, and if you can see, it's much larger than the slab rolling pins, okay? So what we need to do is kind of get this into shape. Also, this canvas kind of sheet, it should be as wide as your slab roller. If it's too long, what's going to happen is just that when the rollers kind of come together and pinch, it's actually going to rip this sheet up, and you're not going to be able to use it again. And I know because it's happened to me. Also, the clay is much too large, so we need to kind of get this clay down to the proper size. Okay, so we're going to do that by using the mallet. So what we're going to do is gently tap in the middle, kind of work our way out. Okay, also, I can make a slab as wide as this table, so as wide as the pins, okay? So I could make something that wide, but I'm probably only going to go out about here. Now that width, the wider my clay is going to go, the more clay I'm going to need if I'm going to get it even piece, okay? So I turn that over to keep it from being overworked in one side. Also, when I throw it down, I can throw it kind of at an angle so it folds down, so it actually stretches a little bit as well. So it saves me out on some work. I'm just knocking these edges down. That's not really necessary. It's a little extra work because I'm going to have the slab roller. We'll do most of it in a little bit. Just going to bring it back over here so I can work on it a little bit better. And I'm rotating it every time just to, like I said, keep the clay even and not overworked. So I've about reached my depth. Now I'm just kind of using this. I'm trying to keep it thicker, but I'm not trying to make it perfect, right? Because this is more even than what I'm doing with the rolling pin. As I go to the edge, it's actually getting thinner, and I can make a few imperfections in it and actually make it a little bit thinner than what I want. Now, I'm about at the size that I want, so I'm going to get that up there. Now what I'm doing is I'm kind of angling down the front, so that's going to help the rolling pins to kind of catch that clay and help push it through. If I keep it straight up, sometimes it kind of spins and kind of burns out a little bit. It doesn't really grab the clay. Now, if you're sheet is long enough, what you can do is actually fold it and push it through. Okay, so it would kind of be held up on the fold, so the folded side would be in the rolling pins, and as it goes through, it'd get pushed through. Now the only issue with that is it has to be long enough. You see how if this is folded in half, if I push it through, it's not going to go anywhere. So I have a second canvas mat that's going to help me do that. So make sure when you put on the second one that it's lined up. It's not too wide. You see how this works? This also works, but it's hanging over the sides. And if it does that, it's going to get ripped up. And that's not what I want. So, after I have it all lined up, I'm double checking, making sure everything's good. Now, I've pushed it right up until it reaches these kind of rolling pins. Okay, if you don't push it, it's not going to be wide enough to grab onto anything. Also, I want to make sure that I don't have any wrinkles. Wrinkles do happen, and it might have a wrinkle or two, but you want to try to prevent as many as you can. Okay, so I'm spinning this way and nothing is happening. So I'm going to try pushing a little bit with the pressure on the other one, and this is working and pulling it through. Now what I don't want is I don't want to have my hand here, because if my fingers get caught in there, it can be very bad. It can break a finger or just be very painful. Okay? So I'm going to slowly turn and make sure that this piece is tight. As we pull it through. Now there was a little hiccup at the front, kind of got a little tightened up, but I chose enough clay that this extra part we can just discard at the end. Right now. Sometimes that happens. It's always good to over-prepare your clay and make sure that you have enough to work with. Okay? So, next thing I have to do is I'm going to compress the clay. So I have kind of a flat ruler, but you can use a kidney rib or another metal tool. And what this is doing is it's compressing the clay because we pinched it. We pinched it only this way. But I also want to compress it this way and this way. And the compression will help keep it from breaking. So if I get little holes or imperfections, I'm going to go back and kind of clean them up. Just making sure everything as good as you can. And when I bring it over to the table, I'm going to set it down and compress it a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to put it in my two pieces, and then I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it upside down, and then I'm going to compress the other side. Make sure I'm going in other directions. Compress the clay evenly. Any kind of build up. Just gonna have to be careful with that. Now, what I'm going to do first, I'll take this out of the way, I'll bring that back in a little bit later, is I'm going to cut a chunk of clay, or a square-shaped piece of clay, and I'm going to rest it on here. First, I'm going to trim my slab. Going to cut a square-shaped section. So I'm using a needle tool, and what I'm doing is I'm pressing firmly down, pulling straight across. And this feels like it should be big enough. Now, it is a little bit, it's not completely circular, and I want it more circular. So what I can do is put about as much as I can in the middle. What I'm doing is kind of getting a rough circular shape. And from there, kind of tracing it. I can get my circular piece out. That takes a little bit more finesse. If you're going to do that, you can use something circular like a bowl or a cup or anything that you want to trace that fits the proper diameter. And for this piece, this circle will serve the right purpose. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a larger section of clay, and this one will start from the top. So if I want it even, just going to use something straight, a straight edge. pull that straight down the side. What I want this piece to do is I want it to have the right circumference, okay? What I mean is it's as long as my circle is round, okay? And that's going to help me when I'm building my sculpture. So it is a little bit off here, but we can fill that either using this as an aesthetic piece, like that, or, because based off of what I'm going to make, which I'm going to make kind of a head, is I can add or take away, and it's not going to affect that as much. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is, if I'm going to shape my headpiece, I'm going to first have to attach this base to that slab of clay. So what I need to do is I need to use a fork or a needle tool. Any of these would work, but it's something that's going to scratch into the surface. Okay, so this is called scoring. And I need to do the same to this side of the slab, so the pieces that are joining. Then, what I need is I need to use something called slip. So this is liquefied clay. It's the same clay body, but more water, and it's kind of blended down. Okay. So what I'm doing now is taking some of this slip, and I'm dabbing it, so I'm kind of blotting it on those score marks. Now you blot it, you don't wipe it, because if you wipe it, you seal up all those marks that you worked so hard for. Now the next step is to take this soft slab, and what I'm doing is I'm kind of lining it up as best I can on top of those score marks, because I want them, so when a piece is flat, when two flat pieces, you can stick them together and kind of smear them, but not all of it kind of connects, and so sometimes you end up with this kind of inconsistent connection. But when you score both sides, they open them up, and when you put them together, they kind of fit together like a glove, and you make sure they're properly blended. And with slip in between, that glue, man, it really holds, and it makes a great connection. It's a way to ensure that your pieces don't break and that they're structurally sound. Now, since this piece is going to be a little bit too big, I'm going to push this side, because as we were pushing it, it stretches a little bit. So I'm going to use a tool to kind of cut it down. Okay, it's still a little bit. It's better not to cut enough than to cut too much, because it's very difficult to add more clay on. Okay, I'm going to just cut down just a little bit more. Still it's stretched. Still a tad too much. There we go. Now, this seam, I need to do the same thing. I need to score, slip, and blend. So I'm roughing up this side. This one as well. Blending them together. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going in and kind of pressing from the outside, or from the inside out, to kind of ensure that these pieces are all kind of stuck together. Now, because the seam is still very fresh, it does have another chance of breaking. So what I'm going to do is a little bit extra scoring. So I blended those and stuck those sides together, but then the surface is still kind of weak. So now I'm going to blend that together as well, kind of compress that a little bit more. So I'm going to use a butter knife to help me achieve that. So this compression helps blend those two sides together. Now, I'm going to take a little extra piece of clay, and I'm going to roll it into a thin snake, or thin coil. And this coil is going to rest on the inside, and it's going to act like the inside of this piece is kind of at a 90-degree angle, and we're going to add a little layer in between to help blend those so that inside part does not crack. Because it's very fresh clay, I'm going to score it very lightly. It was just scored, but I'm just going to score very lightly on the inside. Very lightly here. Going to gently push. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing that piece in. Do the same with another one. Making sure it's even all the way around. Now, that I have my basic shape, I'm going to try to even the top as best I can. Just trim off some of that excess. I'm just kind of lightly pinching. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of create a little face on this side. I'm going to kind of square up the sides of the piece. I'm just putting in my general measurements for a face. You can see those. I'm trying to keep it as clean as I can. Now what I'm doing is I'm pushing in, or pushing out from the inside. trying to ensure trying to make sure that I can get all the proper features. So I'm paying attention. So I worked on the nose. Then I worked on the lips. And I'm working on the eyes, working on the cheekbones. Trying to make sure all flows nicely together. Eyes are a little small, so I'm going to make them a little bit bigger compared to the face. When sculpting, sometimes a little bit less is more. You don't really, what's left untouched can be as important as what you've touched. Now what I'm doing is I'm just defining a little bit of that lip. I have a rough little face like that. And the last thing, can I get some nice eyes? Push back from the inside, and I can create some nice, it's like a slumbering kind of man with a gentle, content expression. Bring out eyebrows. I have a little thing of tools over here to help me. I'm just kind of jumping between. See, sorry, I have to take this. See. So I have something of that nature. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make some ears. So I'm putting two pieces that are similar in size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, sketch out a little ear shape. And I put two pieces on top of each other because when I cut this out, I should, and there's a little excess, of course, should have close to two identical ear shapes. And then these are going to go right around here. So same thing, you have to think about is the angle. Now, because I'm putting this on a curved surface, I had to cut this at an angle. Do you see that? So if I kept it straight, kind of like this, it would sit out. You know, it would sit straight out like this. And that's cool and everything, but it's not for the character I want. I want these a little bit more back. Okay? And if these don't fit right, then I'm going to cut a little bit more, cut more of an angle so it sits a little bit more back. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. And when I find the proper angle, right. And I'll be able to play with these a little bit. Because it's soft, I'll be able to manipulate these slabs a little bit. Yeah. That's nice right there. So, what I'm going to do to kind of help me mark these is I'm just going to lightly trace around. And this light tracing allows me to take them off, but still keep the spot that I want them in. Now, I'm not going to get too much into anatomy, like I haven't really talked anything about it, just putting in the features, because that will take much longer than 40 minutes. Put a general aesthetic of like what it looks like when all those pieces kind of match up in a believable fashion. What you're able to achieve with it in a short amount of time is really great. So I have one, and I'm doing the same technique, right? So I didn't talk about it, but I'm scoring both sides. I'm slipping both sides, and I'm pushing together. Now, my left hand comes on the inside, so when I'm pushing this together, it's supported, because if I don't, it can kind of collapse. See how it kind of gives a lot more, but if I hold it there, it's supported, and that clay will stick together and hold its position rather than move all over. Okay, now I have this kind of funky guy, but see the back? What I'm going to do now is kind of give his head a little bit more of a shape. Now there's something I can do here. It's going to kind of throw this piece off a little bit, but also give it a little bit more dimension. It's called a dart. Now darting, what I can do is I cut. So let me line this up first. So I have an idea of a line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take kind of a football-shaped wedge out of that. And what I'm going to do after that is going to be a hole. And then after that hole, I'm going to push these two sides together. And what it's going to do is it's going to pinch and kind of give this shape more curve and more dimension. So I have that. Now before I do that, I have to slip and score, and then after that, I'm going to push that together. Have to be careful. You see that angle now? It's much more amplified. It's much greater than what I could do by myself. Like just manipulating that, it would still kind of hold that. Also, I have to be careful. So what I'm doing is just ensuring that it's compressed. Shaking this side a little bit. Moving it effectively. Now, the last thing is for this slab sculpture, I'm gonna make the top of this head. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna estimate the shape of his head, but I'm gonna overdo it. It's always better to cut a shape larger than what you need. It allows you to be flexible. It's much bigger. So what I'm going to do now with this flat slab is I'm just going to kind of pinch it in the middle and let it kind of drape over. My fingers kind of let gravity take care of the rest. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim. See how I'm starting to sculpt that around? And what I'm going to do also is I'm going to kind of angle this top of the head. So I'm making this angle because it's curved and I need two kind of bevels. If I just keep it flat, it's not going to hit on everything that I want it to. So if I just kind of give it that bevel right now, it will allow it to shape better and make a better connection when I add this clay on top. Now I can't see the connection, how good it is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm putting some slip on the inside. So I'm attaching it and then taking it off. And see that mark? That's going to allow me to figure out, it's allowing me to know where should I score and where should I not. So I'm scoring and slipping both sides. It's important to make sure, understand where both are. Now, I'm just going to take this as carefully as I can. Go around the head. I kind of feel like Hannibal Lecter right now. Taking this, and now I'm using the kind of serrated part of this butter knife. I'm smoothing this part of the head. Now, one of the things that you need to remember when you're doing this is we just sealed off everything, okay? So as we are getting towards the end of our sculpture, if this sculpture is going to survive, we need to give it some ventilation. So I'll show you how to do that in just a sec. So as I finalize this head shape, there's more I can do. There's infinitely more I could do, but we're Just going to have to call it from there. Now, if you are going to do this, or to ventilate it effectively, you want to think about, what would be a logical place? Well, on us, since his mouth is closed, his eyes are closed, you could do the ears or the nose. So what I'm going to do is just take a needle tool or kind of a hooked tool, scrape out the nose. Just dropped it, but it's okay. Then I'm going to poke all the way through and make sure that there's air. And if it's hollowed and even enough, those holes should be all that you need. Once again, I want to thank you for this opportunity, being able to make these demos for you. I really appreciate that. And I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.